So, whenever I first started recording this, it's going to be a vlog sort of episode. I completely forgot to mention, whenever I recorded the entire thing, that the reason that you are not seeing the World of Darkness episode today is once again because I moved, so you'll be seeing that next week. And then this week is going to be a vlog style episode, which I will start then after the title sequence. So I'm sorry for the hackneyed nature of this, but I am exhausted, and so right now I'm not even entirely thinking straight as far as this video is concerned. So, once again, thank you all for watching, and enjoy the vlog.
When you're in PC,
Let's rock!
when you depend on me,
To give you
weapons and all the information for your journey, and still you trying to hurt me.
Let's stop!
When you're in PC,
Let's rock!
Hello and welcome to this very special vlog edition of Critter Miss, I suppose. If you all have not realized yet, I am actually in my new apartment. I have just finished, well, I'm not exactly finished moving yet, but I am quickly on the way. But considering the fact that this entire weekend I probably spent 20 hours on the road moving, 36 hours straight either moving, packing, or cleaning, I didn't exactly have time to write a script, read a book, or really make any sort of video. So at this point, I reached Tuesday wondering what I was going to do, so I decided that I would do just a very quick special that's going to be in a straight vlog format. So unlike my other ones, which are a little bit more polished, they're edited, there's sequences, books, and there's actually a tightly written script. This one I'm just going to throw out a very quick special that I was going to do and just do it in a quick vlog format that'll probably only be a couple of quick minutes long, but it's on the subject, which I guess you probably would have seen from the thumbnail or title card at this point, on things that I think that a lot of DMs either do wrong or they don't get, and I guess I'm just giving my own opinion on the matter. I wanted to save a couple of them in particular for later whenever I actually have time to write a row one. But this one we actually covered on Nerdiest Talk Show on Earth, which was my podcast, which has kind of gone on hiatus since this has started. But it's on the subject of player deaths and how you should handle player deaths in a role-playing game. So the way I've seen it, there's always like two camps on this, and it's actually kind of a generational thing. A lot of your old school role-playing game fans, especially with like AD&D, first edition D&D, some of like the original gamers, like they see it much more as a challenge. They see it a lot more that characters are just, you generate them, they die, you create a new character, and you move on. Not necessarily to any like hardcore extent, but that seems to be the mentality. Especially a lot of killer DMs I noticed are of the older persuasion. They like to kill characters. They think that actually killing characters adds to the stakes, and it should be something that should be encouraged. It should be something that's happens frequently, basically, to show that your game is successful because your game is a meat grinder. And recently, I've seen a lot of games, they started to stray away from this, especially with organized play, and a lot of RPG books that you'll see nowadays actually try to stray away from the concept of character deaths. They see that a lot of people put a lot of time and effort, which they do, into characters. They put a lot of time into crafting them, they start to get attached to them, they get attached to the characters, they like playing the character on a weekly basis, so a character death is a pretty big thing. A lot of indie books I've seen actually outright say to you that you should not, as a storyteller, kill characters. The Firefly RPG was one where they actually specifically states that you should not kill characters, or character death is something that should be avoided. Even Spirit of 77, a game that I really liked, has something in there about character death being more of an agreed upon thing between the player and the storyteller. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense too in the long run that people put a lot of effort into characters They don't want to just see them get offed. And in my opinion, both of these sides are wrong in their own regards. For instance, with the old school gamers, the killer DMs and whatnot, you are creating an environment. People don't want to play in your game because they don't want their characters dying, and they know that you're going to kill them because you take this perverse enjoyment out of killing characters, and you think that character death equals higher stakes, or let's say with like Tomb of Horrors, Gary Gygax stuff, where it would literally just be a meat grinder and just see how long you could last. Obviously, a lot of people who like to play characters don't want to play in this setting because we do get attached to them. You don't want to see your character die, especially needlessly. Like, if you the way I've always seen it with RPGs is that they're like television shows or movies, and you don't see particularly characters dying in random ass encounters. Like, if you just see a bunch of assholes on the side of the road, they're not going to die. So, for killer DMs, it doesn't make sense. It's, I think it was Noah Antweiler that said it best, that, like, if you're watching Star Wars, and you start off with Han Solo and Luke and Leia, and by the time that you reach 6, you have 3 completely different people because they were killed off in random encounters, it's not going to be a good or satisfying movie, so why would you do that with role-playing games? On the other side of the persuasion, these are still games. Characters do die. People do die. It happens. So, to take away that aspect in a role-playing game is a very bad idea, because at that point, the players know that they can do whatever the hell they feel like, and they're not going to die. They could charge head first into a horde of thousands and walk out fine, because they know that in the book, the game's actually saying you should not kill characters, which is wrong. There should be stakes. There should be consequences. So, I think you always tend to need to find a balance when it comes to player death. That death should always be the sword of Damocles hanging over people's heads, but it should be reserved for big, robust moments. It shouldn't be in random encounters unless something happens. But, for instance, as a storyteller, you should tend to, in my opinion, kind of fall towards the way of the characters in random encounters. If they're in trouble, find ways to help them. If they're about to die, find, like, never fudge the dice, but, like, maybe have an NPC waiting in the wings for, like, a last-minute save. Think of ways that you can actually save characters. Think of ways that you can keep people alive. But whenever you get to your big moments, your big finales, at that point, everything's on the table at that point, because then that's when main characters die in movies and television shows. At the big climax, at the third act, that's when people start to get off, and it makes a lot of sense, and characters can go out in a blaze of glory or something like that. But even then, there are situations where sometimes bad luck just happens. Like, sometimes you just have a set of bad botches and a character dies. If that happens, it's a sad fact of life, but let it happen. For instance, a game that I was running recently, I was running a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game with people in my political science cohort. If you all are watching, hi. But what happened is that one of the players made a very costly mistake, and they ended up having to fight several creatures that were way past their level instead of fighting one. Instead of being 1 on 6, which is an easy fight for a couple of, like, 2nd levels against a 4th level, it was now 6 4th levels against 6 2nd levels, and they got steamrolled. And at the end of the day, 2 other characters got killed, 1 came close, and the other ones had to run away. That was a moment that the players made a costly mistake, and they had to pay the price for that. Even after explaining, saying, "Is this?" You even give them like advice, like, "Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure this is the course of action you want to take?" And if they do not take those subtle hints that what you're about to do can endanger yourself and others, at that point, all bets are off, because you've given them warnings that bad things can happen to you. Or, for instance, I had a 3.5 game in which there was this rogue, and all the rogue had to do was get inside this mansion and kept rolling ones at terrible times, was falling down hills, was falling down off of buildings, and eventually they got caught. They ended up getting killed, and it wasn't by any fault of their own. They did everything right. But sadly, sometimes the dice just kept failing them, and sometimes that happens too. So when it comes to player deaths, from my perspective, it's always that you should never be a killer DM. You should save death, and especially like death of the DM's not going to come in to save you. There's not somebody waiting in the wings for your big finales or your big bads, not your random ass encounters. But if the situation comes up in those random encounters where somebody does something if someone makes a glaring mistake that you warn them about, or if the dice just don't fall in their favor, well, sometimes bad luck happens, characters die, you just kind of have to let it go. But whenever those random encounters come, remember that your job isn't to kill characters, your job is to tell a story. It's supposed to tell a story. So always think of how the story should go, and think of ways that you could save it from there. So again, thank you for watching my long vlog on the subject of player deaths. This has been a very long weekend for me, and you can probably tell from the chopped up bits of this video. But next week is actually going to be back to the norm. I'm going to be doing Geist the Sin Eater as a special treat to let you all know, and hopefully you'll come back for that one. So please, if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe for more, and also go to my websites, tannerreviews.com and projectderailed.com, which I work with the people that do the Critical Role recaps. So again, thank you and have a good day.